Agony is with a live-in love. See, agony in my love offered me more sensation than any Dionysian sadomasochistic fantasy could ever provide.
A gay man in a woman's body.
I cry a lot. Do ceremonies. I grease my face. I lick my...
In short, to have been just like my father, the emulation of whom would have killed me in his eyes. And what if this were not emulation at all, but the very fiber of authenticity? What if I really was and am swashbuckling, loud, domineering, independent, cunning, ruthless, competitive, intransigent, sarcastic, and sexy? And was I not always like that? Except as another?
My name is Rachel Rosenthal.
And my name is Molly Barnes. If you're wondering who that was and what that was, my guest today is Rachel Rosenthal, one of our country's leading artists. She's a performance artist. Through her nonprofit foundation, she teaches classes, and she's also a painter with two. What was all that we just looked at?
Well, it was several things. Actually, the one with the beard was much earlier. It was in the 70s. And then the others were mainly in the 80s, but also in the 90s. So there were several different time elements.
Now, Rachel, that was you with the hair and the the Betty Boop voice.
Yeah, yeah.
And what happened? Then you pulled off all of the accoutrements that we attached to being a beautiful woman and became what?
I became a gay man in a woman's body.
I was trying to figure that out. Do you still consider yourself that?
Oh, absolutely.
Why?
I don't know. It's just one of those things where I always had a problem with femininity, and I always was a tomboy. I wanted to be a guy, and yet I was never a lesbian. I tried, but I didn't succeed.
And what happened?
Well, I just came to the point where I accepted who I was, even though it was a bit mixed up. And I think that what happened was that I looked at men the way men look at men.
Which is?
Which is with...
Competitive?
No, not at all. I was attracted to guys, but in a male way instead of a female way. It's difficult to explain, but I would treat them the way a man would treat them, a male lover would treat them. And it never worked for me.
When did you first become aware of the women's movement?
Well, I was very male identified for many years, and I was always very unhappy because I had bought into the gospel, which is if you're a woman, you can't be an artist. If you're an artist, you can't be a woman. And it was very painful. It was a very difficult kind of thing to live through because I was both a woman and an artist. And then in '71, here in Los Angeles, there was this marvelous weekend at Cal Arts that was arranged by Judy Chicago and Mimi Shapiro, where women artists that they had discovered in their garages and in their kitchens, etc., all over the nation, came to Cal Arts in Valencia and saw each other's slides of their work for a whole weekend. That's all we did. We sat in the dark and looked at people's art, at women's art. And for me, it was a revelation. I couldn't believe it because I never knew that women were artists. And so that changed my life. And it changed the way I looked at myself, and it changed the way I felt, because I had been very anxious for years and years and years about where I stood in the world. And suddenly, the world opened up for me and accepted who I was, which is a woman and an artist. I could be very anxious in the middle of a lot of people, you see.
Well, you actually got into a workshop, not before your own, but with Miriam Shapiro. It was a discussion group. And you've told me in the past that you felt it was difficult because you were used to running things.
Yeah. Oh, it was horrendous. I would come home to my then husband, and I would say, I'm quitting, I can't stand it anymore. You know, another one of these meetings and I'm going to go mad. And yet I stayed.
I like the book that Judy Chicago wrote, Through the Flower, My Emergence as a Woman Artist, because she talked about splitting with Miriam Shapiro after they had done the Woman's Building, one here in Los Angeles, one in Fresno. And then she said in order to get away from her, she had to fight. I mean, they had to have a fight, a violent argument for her to grow up and take over her own life.
Well,
tell me about your relationship. I remember reading the Calvin Trilling book about Through Off the Wall, and your relationship with Jasper Johns and Rauschenberg and Cy Twombly.
Well, it started with my relationship with Merce and John, Merce Cunningham and John Cage, because they had come to Paris when I was there, and they gave a master class, and we got together, we got friendly. Then we came back to New York, and for some reason they accepted me into their circle, which was amazing because there were very few women in there. And through them, of course, I met, first of all, Bob, who entered the circle, and then again Jasper, who everybody called Jap, so I call him Jap also. And I have to tell you that they were both so amazing. Jap was 23 years old and Bob was 25. And they were both so into who they were that I was just so impressed with that, because I had no idea who I was. And we decided, Jap and I, to find lodgings in a big loft, because I was staying with my parents at the time. He had a very teeny-weeny little apartment, and we needed to work. And so we started looking, and we found a place which was Pearl Street, which is now destroyed, and it's probably Tribeca now. And we found this little building that was going to be torn down, and we weren't allowed to live there, so of course everybody did that. We lived there and pretended we didn't. And we became very close, because Jap had the loft under mine, and Bob had a loft around the corner, and we saw each other all the time for about 3 years. And so I was so lucky, because I was in the right place at the right time and got to know these people.
You started at the top.
I always did. I had a very good knack for finding the people and somehow, you know, being like a little lapdog around them or something. They accepted me, and I was, you know, I was a witness to that period of their lives. And actually, I just did, not just, but a few months ago, I did a lecture at MoCA for the opening of Bob's Combine show about that period.
We mammals know we're off and running. Strategies, breaking treaties, tricking and tinkering and sticking together. We're family. Putting up a front in this new world, putting on the dog, the rat, the horse, the woolly mammoth, the saber-toothed